Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday public meeting of the BOCC. Appreciate you being here and participating. We'll start if you want to rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We got a little, you're going to notice something a little new today. KLTV is running the videos. They have cameras around the room, so it'll be a little bit different today and should be better. Okay. Commissioner Mortensen, would you like to give us a motion on the minutes?
Good morning, everyone. As usual, I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
Any questions, comments? See none, I would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
I also vote aye. That passes. On our consent agenda today. Move some of my papers out of the way. We have a completion letter from Northwest Control Company. They, from July of 2022 till April of this year, we had a temporary chiller over at the Hall of Justice till we could get that system fixed. So that's, that closed out with that ended in April and we got a final completion letter. So that's what that is. Interagency reimbursement agreement between the Washington State Administrative Office. This is relates back to the Blake decision. We get reimbursed our courts and for the work they do in making reimbursements and whatnot pertaining to the Blake decision. So this agreement runs for a year, July 1st of 23 through the end of June of next year. We have two amendments to extend contracts for our juvenile detention center. One's with Wahkiakum County. Looks like that one's been in effect since 2005, so it's being extended. And one for Pacific County. And that one's been in effect since 1999. Not every jurisdiction has a juvenile center. When you get to a population of 50,000 or above, you are required to have a juvenile center. So we contract with some of the smaller units to take care of theirs. I think we do Columbia County and Morgan. Yeah, also. Under resolution, budget stabilization fund was set up by the commissioners in, I want to say, December. And it was our people in our finance, clarified some things on it. So we're putting that into effect. It basically, if we have the funds and we maintaining what we need in our general fund, then we can set up a percentage that are going to the rainy day fund. And the rainy day fund is supposed to be like it says, it takes all three of us to commit taking money out of that, and it's for emergency type situations. We have a resolution for the county road for project number 804. It's a culvert replacement out in Rose Valley. See what else we got. Board correspondence. We got a notice back from the Surface Transportation Board. We sent them notice that on the trails thing that we were eliminating the interim trail use. They just sent us a letter back with stamp acknowledging that they received it. And that's what that one is. We have vouchers in the amount of $1,416,391.19. Entertain any questions if anybody has any on consent agenda.
I think in following up your comment about the jail Jill, about contracts. We're really trying in the background, seeing if we can improve the situation because it costs us an arm and a leg.
Yeah,
There are lots of things going on back there, so don't assume too much like we're not really trying to pay attention there.
yeah. The others? Okay, pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Last chance, comments, questions? See none, see no hands. I would call for a vote. Those in favor? With
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. It passes. Motion items, Public Works.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. The item 9 on the motion items is the contract execution with Lakeside Industries for the 2023 Joint Agency Pavement Overlay Project for a total cost of $1,828,692. That does include sales tax. So we awarded this project to Lakeside on May 23rd. They were our lowest responsive bidder. We are overlaying various portions of County Road throughout this area. This is a common practice. The one that most people will notice this year, which is past due, is doing Lexington Bridge Drive. So we will be doing the portion of Lexington Bridge Drive from Pacific Avenue North to the I-5 right-of-way structure, then from the I-5 right-of-way structure on the east side all the way to SR 411 West Side Highway. So we will have flaggers, and the intention is to do that one at night.
Presumably, you're going to stripe after.
Yes, we will do some temporary striping, and then with our striping project this summer, we will replace all of the stripes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a little bit of work before that one there too with loop system or,
That has already been completed.
oh, it's already been completed.
Yes.
Cool, okay.
Do you have any sway with the WashDOT about the condition of the freeways? But don't answer that. That's fine.
I don't, I got to tell this on Susan. I'm not trying to embarrass her, but I think this is pretty cool. Her daughter graduated from Kelso High School, was valedictorian out of a class of over 300.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
We're very proud of her.
Is she going to be an engineer?
Yes, she is planning on studying aeronautical engineer, going to Virginia Tech University like her father.
Very good. Did I understand that you're going to be closing down or restricting traffic going across the Lexington Bridge over I-5?
Yes, and we're planning on doing it at night. It'll be one lane closures.
Okay, yeah, for those of us from Castle Rock, we either have to come across that bridge or the other one, and if they're both screwed up, then we
Yes.
stay in Castle Rock.
And it will be one evening. This is
Yeah,
a
okay.
quick work for us.
Okay, I don't know if you have anything to do with this, but as you're trying to get on the northbound lane for I-5, there is no good sign there indicating where the ramp is getting down to I-5. There's a whole bunch of bushes just ahead of where the turnoff is, and you can't even see the sign.
Which exit is that?
Pardon me,
Which, is this the Castle Rock?
talking about Lexington Bridge.
Okay, I will have people take a look, see and
Yep.
see if we can get it addressed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we do approve the contract with Lakeside Industries for the 2023 Joint Agency Pavement Overlay Project for a cost of $1,828,892.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I would call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. And Public Works will be back. We have two public hearings, so I have to be careful, cognizant of the time. One at 9:45 and for an ordinance compost recovery policy, and one at 10 for an ordinance amendment unauthorized connections and use of water. So we, at 9:45, we'll open things up till then, but at 9:45, I'm gonna have to indulge your patience and deal with two public hearings. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
if I might interrupt you, you have a Q&A that might be worth addressing because we have this new KLTV integrated system. And basically it's a request to minimize the size of the banner at the bottom, the KLTV banner. But also I noticed for those on Zoom, we do not see the speaker now, and I don't know if that's an issue for the public or not. By the speaker, I mean at either of the tables, we had a staff table and yeah, you know what I'm gonna say.
there. Yeah, would you be possible, Kayla, to minimize the big logo, and why are the constituents not seen when they comment?
And the follow-up Q&A was what I just said.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll work on that.
Well, I think all that requires is for us to put the laptops back on. Is that not true?
I don't know about this system, so.
There is a camera operator at KLTV who is watching the live feed and doing live switching. So I guess probably, and they can hear us right now. So I think just a request to them to kind of, if someone's from the public is at the public speaking desk, can we switch the camera feed over to them? I think that would be good.
It's not as instantaneous as it used to be, or not
Sure.
simultaneous. So there are times when we have two people
Sure.
that both. Okay, so it's just, I would invite the public to make comments to us and say, we like it or we don't like it.
Absolutely.
Okay, before I open it up, I'm gonna address, we had a lot of comment, last Tuesday on situations out of an RV park, Paradise Cove. And, a lot of comments in the public, you know, coming on and wondering why we weren't doing anything. And we talked to building and planning and they were gonna go out there, and they have. And I asked them to come in this morning and share with what they have seen, but I got a copy of the last 3 years inspections, and I got pictures of the place. And you know, sometimes when you get testimony and people are very passionate about things, the picture can be painted a little different than what you see. And I invite anybody to come up and look at this stuff, and I invite anybody to go out and go through it like I did. It's an older park and it's not perfect, but it's not like it was painted. And we've had the inspections. So I think a couple of the questions were the closeness of the units. And we had our fire inspector out there, and what did he find?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Director of Building and Planning. Myself, my building official, who's also the county fire marshal, and Wayne Nelson, our planning manager, all went out there last Wednesday afternoon. We were concerned with the comments that were said last week, and obviously we went out there and did our inspection. It is an older park, but it was in very nice shape. There are many fire extinguishers and fire suppression systems on place, on site. I think those were recently put in. However, they were on site when we were there. The crowding of the trailers was of our foremost concern, that and the fire hazard, of course. There are a few that are a little bit too close, but we're working with our fire department and our building official to remedy those. There's just a few situations. Go ahead.
Could you define what the too close means?
We didn't go out there with tape measures, measuring each and every one of them. However, they just looked like there was, or we could, they looked too close together in case of a fire. We would just, or to remove the stuff in between the trailers.
Did you see things that were that
No.
far apart?
No,
Okay, thank you.
not at all. And the tent spaces that were addressed last week, people piling up in the tent spaces were completely open. Not one resident was, or anybody was using those tent spaces. They're very nicely marked. They're on their site plan. So the perception that was portrayed last week was not anything what we found out there. I know we're not out there every day. We don't see everything. The septic O&M inspector was there doing their annual inspection. It's a brand new septic system that was installed last year. They have all their permits in place. I have obtained all the environmental health inspections that were done for the last 3 years, and the last 3 years, there were no violations listed that needed to be corrected. So, I mean, we will keep an eye on it and we will watch. And obviously, if there's more complaints, we will address them as they come in, but we found nothing that we could, even ask the park to remedy.
Okay. So you asked us to have them take a look at that. And we did, and they sent me information, probably to the other commissioners too. So we saw the whole last 3 years. I invite you to take a look at the pictures. I invite you to go out there. So that was our response to that. So we got about a half hour. I'll open up a public comment.
Well, I'm Roberts from the park. Good morning. First topic, fire extinguishers.
You're gonna have to be close.
First topic, fire extinguishers. Those fire extinguishers are there because I went down to the Kelso Fire Department on the weekend and got Deputy Noon's number. I went to there was nobody there, but it was open, and made a call and sent him an email. And he came out and viewed the park, and he said, yeah, there's some problems there. And he goes, and I said, I don't even think there's any fire extinguishers on premise. And so, yeah, the next day they were trying to get them. And furthermore,
So it's been corrected, right?
well,
It's been corrected.
I don't know if it's
been-
corrected. Corrected what?
Fire marshal says it's been corrected, right?
I have no idea.
If you could move
Oh.
the microphone much closer to the edge so that, yeah. so-
Yeah, I have no idea, but in regards to the trailers being close, those trailers are within 14 inches apart. Now, she said they never took a tape measure, correct? Guys?
14 inches like that, that's pretty easy
No,
to see.
that's like 22. I've dealt with measurements yes, that's like 22 inches right there.
So this
There,
close,
now you're getting there.
and
now
you're
you're
telling
gonna-
me they can walk, I drove through that park, never saw anything that close.
Well, I
Never
think
saw
you
a
need to-
thing that close.
I think
You
you
gotta
need-
come in here and tell us the truth. You can't come in here and
I'm
tell a
glad you're
story.
saying that. I'm glad you're saying that.
Yeah, I am,
Okay.
because go ahead. Because what you're saying, we haven't seen.
Okay, now, remember one thing, everybody's been there, but nobody's taken a tape measure. And from what I understand from Daniel, 10 feet is the dimension. We're within 3 feet, 15 inches, 7 feet, 6 feet. And then the structures between the sheds that are put in there. What is, so there's no violations we're finding, Tracy?
The fire department and my county fire marshal say there are no violations.
Okay. What about in the statutes on your chapter on RV parks? What it states in there about dimensions apart, unit to unit?
I'd have to go back to the statute, but
So Daniel was wrong.
Daniel no longer works with like our department. But all three of us went out there, last Wednesday. You were there on site.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So none of these RVs are 15 inches apart? I'm curious to see.
I
wanna-
didn't take a tape measure out
Well,
there,
I
but
think they need to take a tape measure.
they weren't 15 inches apart.
They need to take a tape measure. I've dealt with measurements all my life. That laptop right there is probably 13 inches across.
If I drove through there and saw two units this close,
Yes.
I would know it. I
Okay,
don't need a tape measure.
okay.
That's a pretty big difference from.
So now when I leave here today and I take a tape measure and put it between those two units, what are you going to say to yourself next Tuesday at 9 o'clock?
Well, if you show me,
What are you going to say?
if you bring in and you show pictures that there's two units, I'm not talking about your awnings and your stuff like that. You're telling me two units are 13 inches apart.
Absolutely.
Okay. We never saw it.
There's truth here.
There is, one side or the other.
So what possible solution is there?
Well,
Shut
just
down
like
the
the
park?
gentleman, just,
Shut down the park, move trailers, reduce
they
having
need,
spaces? Or do you employ strategies to do the best you can to mitigate the fire hazard? Because what I also heard them say is that's one of the things they're continuing to work on, making sure that what can be, the threats that can be reduced can be reduced.
well, according to what she has to say, there is no apparent problem.
But they said they were working on,
Working on-
material and debris and things that are in between the apartments that can help.
We're
spread
working on
fire.
cleaning those out without removing or
Right.
having anybody change residence. Yes,
Well,
It
my,
is
So
our
it's so
concern.
it's a work in progress.
absolutely.
Right. And it's one of those challenges we get with old facilities that were built under different standards. Granted, the standards have changed and been upgraded. What you have left then is we have to weigh, is it realistic to eliminate those trailer spaces and, force people to move to more expensive accommodations? Or can we mitigate the danger to within reason? I think we've certainly sent the message to building and planning that we need to be working with property owners so that, we can reduce the hazards as best we
I
can.
understand that. I totally understand that. But my question is, are we available to be able to see what the building department submits to Paradise Cove?
I think they're all public records.
It's all public
So
records.
we can get a notification on regards to what's up with that. And so we can have our own.
There's last 3 years inspections and
Yeah, they're
pictures.
available.
Anybody can take a look at them.
And now that you mentioned that too, Rick, in regards to the last 3 years inspections, the septic's been open and leaching. And Joanna Barnhart can have testimonial to that. So if you did 3 environmental service inspections and they all came back fine, I don't understand that because they were open back there. And obviously the owners didn't have the money to fix the septic. And it seems odd if there was 3 years worth of inspections and none of these things were found. Did anybody get out of the car to look at these areas? Or is it just a drive-through? Like you said, you went through the park and didn't notice the dimensions of what the trailers were apart.
Or my staff and I walked the entire park.
Walked? Okay.
And I have pictures with me that we walked the entire park with the management there and their maintenance staff.
So you didn't see any concerns in regards to any of the trailers being close together whatsoever?
I think she's covered that. There's a couple that look like are a little close and they're working with the fire marshal to see how to mitigate that. Isn't that? We've been told that, right?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So what is a little close to people? What is your statutes? And
Wait a minute, this is going on. They've asked you to take pictures and verify. We don't need to be discussing this anymore right now, under public time. Take your pictures and bring the information in.
Is that what they do? They interrupt?
No, but this is a public meeting. They have a right to talk too.
Okay. So I'm gonna bring my pictures and I'm gonna bring the dimensions. And then you can answer for that, because you just said, you basically said I was a liar. And the remainder of the folks that came here on behalf of the.
What I said was people get emotional with things that are really bother them, and sometimes what gets painted can be different than what you go out and see. That's what I said.
Like the gentleman in the last meeting last week that said, you got rules, enforce them. And it's a 10-foot rule minimum, and it's a 12-foot in a mobile home park. There's more than just a few violations in that park in regards to that.
Move on to something else. Every week you come here and take up our time with this thing, and other people have comments to say, and the fire marshal and everything. Take your pictures. Leave comments for for other things that people in this meeting want to say. I mean, you take up time every week for the same thing. And as far as we know, and as far as the commissioners know, and as far as the fire marshal know, the place is fine. So enough already.
Yeah, I like that.
Enough.
I like that.
I just want to say how this looks from sitting in the public watching over the past months this has unfolded. Originally, this was about his problem with the park manager, and now it's turned into this weekly kind of back and forth grilling of county and staff. So for someone who doesn't know anything about the situation, it looks like someone's personal vendetta or problem with a person or park, and they're trying to use every means they can find to enforce that. So I don't think this is the forum for that personally, but I'll move on to my actual question. Did we end up increasing our contract with KLTV for to have an operator there directing the cameras? Is that like the same price or?
I don't think we changed it.
I'm
We've
not aware that
we've
we
been waiting
changed
for them to
anything.
get appropriate equipment, wasn't it? That's been one of the delays, and so this morning they're trying a new approach, so. As
Yeah.
is always the case with technology, you have to work through the bugs and,
Yeah.
they need the feedback too, so.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious. I know as technology increases, things, change and sometimes become more efficient. So I was just curious if this is kind of the same type of value thing with maybe a little, higher product at the end. So, okay, thanks.
So I wasn't sure I heard you correctly. So, yeah, we did put some amount of dollars out for changing camera control, or I think the cameras have been the same for a while. But the ongoing contract was already in place, and I don't think that was changed.
Yeah.
If I may change the subject matter,
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim Collins, I live at Sandy Bend, and back in January, I got a letter from the Collis County Weed Control that there was a possibility that I had noxious weed on my place. I called them, and this was probably in February. They said they were gonna be out in March. And I granted them when I called them to have access to my place, along with a couple of my neighbors, which they had identified this noxious weed at the bottom of the Blaza Road and also on the Hicks Road. And basically that conjunction, that's where I live, basically at I live within about 500 feet of the base of the Blaza Road. And I contacted my two neighbors, Marty Teal and Carol Charrington, the possibility, because that creek, the headwaters in my place goes down through Teal's place and down to Charrington's place. I've never heard anything more about it. And I don't know if the weed control is, listening to us today or not, but maybe we can get some word back as to what's going on. Like I say, I contacted them back in February myself and talked to the lady at the weed control, and she's told me that I would be in fact contacted. And when they came out, once the weeds started growing, which I'm sure they're growing now, to find out what they actually look like, is some kind of a brome weed, I guess, that's quite invasive. Anyway, just FYI.
I can ask her, Jim. She's pretty responsive. I know she's very busy time of year, but we'll make that ask.
There's only one problem. Our weed team is about 4 people, and how many weeds are there?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to see the list. It's,
Yeah, I think we'll always have weeds,
yeah.
but I have to say they were very responsive to my request. I live next to Rotary Park by the skate park and there was poison hemlock there. That concerned me with people playing in the park and those kind of things. They came out and took care of it. You know, it wasn't the next day because they are busy. You know, they had a schedule and they, anyhow, I appreciate the fact that they are responsive. They don't just ignore. But I walked into the office. It's the building right next door and they've got a sign right there. It says weed control, I think it is. And anyhow, I was just very pleased with that understanding. I think there's always going to be weeds. I think that's an ongoing battle. We just need to keep at it.
And you,
This weed that I'm talking about, it is, you know, is a noxious invasive weed that the county's been very concerned about. Actually, this was the second letter I got. I got one last year.
John Mike.
Okay, sorry about that. Actually, this is the letter I got in January was the second letter because I'd gotten one actually a year before that from them identifying this weed. But to my knowledge, they've not been back out there because like I say, I granted them permission to come onto my place to identify if in fact there was anything on my place. But I'm like saying this creek that I'm talking about, which is just, you know, you step across it. But you know how weeds travel down creeks. We all realize that here in Calais County. So
after we close today, you want to walk over with me?
I'll do that, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Mhm.
You have a hand up?
I do. SL. Go ahead and unmute. You gonna lose them? They left? Okay, we lost that hand. We have about 10 minutes before public hearing.
I just need to let you know that I'm not really keen on the format that you have. I really like to see the face of the person who's talking like on Zoom. And also, I really have a huge concern about making sure that this is recorded. Just for an example, the conversation that we had today will be probably put out into the media in one way or another. And it needs to be recorded so that we can come back and say that, yes, this situation had been looked at by several different entities. And this was what we had decided. And this was recorded. This is not hearsay. So we need to have it recorded. I don't know if it is or will be. It will be. Thank you. But I really like the pictures of the faces on Zoom. Thank you.
I would just add real quick, you know, our building and planning, I may spar with them at times just on different ideas, but I gotta say they're very responsive. We asked them to do that and they headed right out with fire marshal and everything. And if anybody knows Mike, our fire marshal, he's very good at detail. And if there's anything that was the least bit wrong, he would catch it and find it. So I'm totally comfortable with him looking over the situation and coming up with a solution for anything that he found abnormal.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a compliment is that the format that you're leading here with public comment being open with staff and yourselves and giving answers is a format that we would really love to see in our other community meetings. I wish there was someone from the city of Longview listening that could understand what community dialogue really means. It isn't just one-way talk to the mayor that doesn't respond. It is a communication like you're providing, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
The only thing I'd say about that is I think the three of us up here are very adamant that we're here to hear your concerns and I always thank our staff for coming in and being willing to participate. It's not always easy because you're not always pleased, but the more you get to know them, I think the more you understand that they really do try to do your work. It just, in the long run, it's a good thing. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
However, I will admit that when that is not the case and staff is not responsive, we come down on them. I mean, I think we do. We just talked about some turnover. And whenever there is turnover, then there are delays as we get new people, and it's been very difficult to recruit folks for a lot of our positions, not just Cowlitz County, but all over. Hiring is difficult for people with certain special training, and the building and planning requires that kind of experience, but we're doing the best we can. And we emphasize it's not, you don't answer the phone. No, you can't. You answer it. How can we help? And that's the proper perspective it should be.
Yeah, I'd like to add, we are actually trying to make you be the bosses as it should be. So now there's a lot of perfunctory things we have to do. But for many optional things, for example, the coming up of the behavioral health tax or mental health tax, I may be inclined to go this way or that way on it, but it will be you who will determine as best as I can determine what your wishes are, because it is your dollars that we're commandeering, and we take that pretty seriously. I'm having a hard time these days. I apologize.
We got a couple minutes. Maybe I'll try to explain, and you guys feel free to chime in and help this opioid agreement that David Berger sent over to us and looks like was done. We get money, opioid settlement. I think it's over 3 million, right? Yeah. And part of the settlement was an agreement that you had to have this group work together. And we were hooked with 5 other counties: Thurston, Mason, Grays Harbor, Pacific,
Okay.
and Lewis.
And Wakai.
And Wakaika. And the charge was that this big block of counties would come up with a group to kind of oversee how this is done. A lot of it is accounting stuff to make sure that stuff was taken care of. The commissioners expressed when it was first presented to us that we'd like to maintain control in the counties as best we could. So our legal, David, and along with Gina James, put a lot of work into this too, tried to find a solution to give the county more control over that. What they were finally able to come up with is that we have an agreement now that it's Cowlitz County and the 2 large cities we have, Kelso and Longview, Wahkiakum, and Pacific and Grays wanted to join us. And so we're kind of that block, and the overseeing group with that will be 1 representative from each of those, 1 representative from the county, 1 from Longview, 1 from Kelso, and so on. And the county will pretty much maintain the accounting function of it, do the yearly reports and where the money goes. But we wanted to stay out of having this group making a lot of decisions. So basically what they'll do, if you have a dispute in one of the areas, say you have a dispute and somebody doesn't like the way Kelso dispersed and they want to dispute it, the first order of business is Kessel tries to take care of that problem. If they can't, then this group will decide that, and that will be their function. Their function also will be once a year review where the funds went and make a report of it so everybody can see it. So I thought we did as good as we could to keep it as local as we can. So I guess this is more of a shout out to our legal team and to Gina for working very hard on making that happen. We have to have that had to be signed by June 30th. So we're closing that down, but it looks like we got an agreement and everybody's on board.
Yeah, I thought you signed the agreement already. We had approved that.
Yeah, but this was the one he sent us. I don't know if
Right.
is that the one I signed? Oh. Okay.
And just a couple of comments, at least one comment, because I've already forgotten the second one. When you said about 3 million, that's over,
Oh, yeah.
over
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
And then.
It's not a lump sum.
And then the other, the adjudication kind of part or it's not whether we, the county say, spend these dollars on item A or item B. It's whether the item A or B are within the legitimate use is based on the rules. And so I don't really anticipate the board will ever do anything, although they will meet maybe annually to say yay. and
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Time will tell, but I think it actually is pretty limited role on their part. I did get a list of the approved things you can use for that and trying to digest that thing. It's about several pages long at the different uses for those.
That's where
funds.
we have a Gina James.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think your point in bringing this up is very good because it illustrates that while we are confined by some of the legislation that comes down or the administrative codes that come down, if you are on the right path, you typically can figure out a way around it. Or I shouldn't say quite so strongly, but one should try to figure out how to get the correct thing despite. And this is a perfect example of that.
So we got a couple minutes. I know we have I'm gonna pick on you a little bit just because I know where your boy started. And we have another, Jennifer's son graduated from Kelso also. And I've been friends with his dad for many years, so I know where your boy started, and that's pretty amazing. Well, I think as you work your way up to the table slowly, we'll hit 9:45.
Before you start, quick question for Kelly. In the past, we've had two recordings, a KLTV recording and our in-house recording through Zoom, and both were available after the fact. True? Will that still be the case going? Yeah, going forward?
We still have our recording. I have not asked KLTV, but I'm assuming they're doing the same thing that they've always done. It's just being
I think
video
you said
feeded.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So good morning again, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. So I am bringing for a public hearing today establishment of a new Cowlitz County Code chapter, which will be numbered 2.35, which establishes a compost procurement policy for the county. So this is coming out of the Organics Management Law, which is RCW 4319A.150, which was passed by the legislature in March of 2022. A portion of this law required counties and cities with a population over 25,000 to adopt a compost procurement policy. This procurement policy would apply to what they term public works projects. So that is any construction done by a public agency. In this, we would be required to plan and consider the use of composted materials such as compost amended soils, and mulch in our public works projects. Public works projects would include a road construction project, a parks project, or a facilities project upgrading grounds are the places that this would apply to. It has a requirement to use compost products unless it is not available in a reasonable timeline. The products do not comply with safety standards, and the purchase prices are neither reasonable. They're neither reasonable nor competitive. It also requires reporting of what we spent every year on compost materials, the amount we purchased, and that reporting being completed to Ecology in even years, so 2024, 2026, moving forward.
This is, to me, this is an illustration of Commissioner Mortensen's point. I think they've done a real good job of taking a new mandate and working it as best they can to reflect what we currently do and not trying to expand stuff. So in my opinion, I thought Susan and her staff did a great job of working within this and trying to keep us as normal as possible. I will say to the public, be careful on this because it may start with us. It eventually bleeds down to you and what you have to do at your own place. So just pay attention to it. Any other questions from up here?
Yeah, I'd like to just add on that. If you've lived up in, say, Seattle, you see that you've got, instead of, you've got a bin for this, a bin for that, and a bin for that. And it may seem easy for us to do that, but just think about the cost involved with putting in a whole new fleet of trucks to grab the specific stuff, a whole new set of trash cans, a whole new set of contracts or people that come around and pick this up. We currently have a very interesting and good situation that we already use the material as we can, and what we can't end up in the landfill, like the municipal solid the waste, and that will get composted by nature, of course, and produce the natural gas which we intend to trap and use, either producing electricity or going back into the main gas line that feeds our homes and the businesses around.
Any other questions from us?
I beg your pardon?
Just seeing if there's any other questions from
Oh.
us. No?
I don't-
Now,
We've already workshopped this and we've read through
Yeah,
it and had our
we have,
questions answered so previously. So this is an opportunity for the
Yeah.
public to ask questions.
So we'll open up the public meeting.
Hi. this might be a little unusual when you say compost. I'm privy to plans. I have a friend called Jim Mallett, which I'm sure you know.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, when you consider compost, he is wanting to deal with human waste, which is totally treated, so it is safe. And he has shown me his plans. Had we gone through with this many years ago, our county would have derived a lot of income from other counties with gathering their treated human waste, which it does work, will work, and it is not dangerous to the community nor the environment. I don't know why we haven't done that, but can the compost that you're talking about possibly be incorporated in his plan so that we can derive some sort of revenue from this instead of having it cost us? Because his plan would work. I've seen it. I've been privy to reading his material. And I do know about such things as that. I've studied those things. So I'm not sure why we haven't incorporated at a larger scale. I know there's some. He is head of his department in that area. Not sure that it's a large department or if it's actually doing a whole lot. Haven't talked to him recently, but I'm wondering why we as a county haven't gone into an area that might profit our county.
So that is unrelated to this law of what we're being
Okay,
used.
okay.
So when we do a road projects there, we are supposed to be amending our soils with compost and in certain locations, we do it for stormwater treatment. Now they're looking for us. So when we're doing park beautification, instead of putting out bark dust, we're putting out mulch because that's considered a compostable material. So that is the
This-
kind of things we're looking at.
It is totally different than what I'm talking about then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It was an-
But I would like to have you look into his program so that we can derive some income.
So
that.
that's actually a question
It is a
to
question.
us because we set the
sorry.
policy. So.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I would
Which
just
is,
like-
which is fine. And we've actually had some discussion. We're trying to work in the Tootle Valley to do those
Right.
biosolid soil additives to create a tree farm for both shoreline restoration as well as, the use of that product. A lot of regulations involved and it's.
Correct.
But I think it's fair enough to say that's one of those projects that we're working on, working with a lot of other agencies to.
I agree with
Together.
that. There's a lot of different agency involved, but it seems like and he's been after this for
Mhm.
many years. And so I've been privy to his steps along the way. And it seems like he has proven on and on, beyond a doubt that yes, this does work. And why we haven't supported him, I'm not sure why. This is a question.
At the risk of pointing fingers, and I shouldn't do that, and not to my colleagues, no. Let me suggest two acronyms,
Okay,
well, two agencies. Department of Ecology, the Corps of Engineers. Those are huge bureaucracies that we have to work through. It's a multi-year program and
I would agree. I don't think it's so much that the county doesn't support him. I've
it's the
met
other.
with Jim and it's a day-long process.
It is, it is.
You
We'll get
look
there.
over stuff and I've seen it done in other areas with the biosolids. And so I think it's fairly safe to say we're not really the roadblock here. There's
Okay,
other
well, I
agencies.
appreciate that because I really do feel his plan is viable. I think it would be a benefit to the county. We have areas that we can process this and use it. Other counties are desperately seeking other places to put this product, you might say. And I think like you had mentioned earlier, Dennis, how we had profited from the garbage dump.
and landfill, yes.
Correct, that we could have this as another source of income, revenue for the county. And I don't know why, again, those two would probably be a hurdle, but why we haven't pushed on those two agencies. Because we can use this revenue. I really do think so. Anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
One last add-on. Jim's been working on this for probably at least half a dozen years.
Oh, yes.
And way back when we actually supported him, to us, like, I believe I'm speaking for us, for the three of us, he's a hero. He puts out a lot of effort.
Yes,
A
he
lot of
does.
intellectual efforts, a lot of
Yes.
physical effort, and it's the kind of thing that I can illustrate what the roadblocks are, because he now pursues that full-time. Before, he had his job and he was doing that on the side, if you will, a little exaggeration, but not a whole bunch. And he spends many trips to meet with the various entities up in
Yes.
the Olympia area.
He
And
does.
at University of Washington also. It's pretty clear to me, and was long ago, that it's a good thing to do. But what's clear to us seems to be a step too far for a bureaucracy. But we've been struggling on it. Let me assure you, he has all our support.
Thank you. I appreciate his support. I know he does as well. He's again, like you had mentioned, worked very long and very, very hard. He's my friend's husband, and we've been friends for many years. And I would just like to see him get a break, and also our community get some money out of this. As again, you said, we strive to make money off of our projects, like the garbage, the dump, warehouse or dump. And if we could do it on this as well, I mean, it's a plus for us. So thank you for support. I appreciate it.
Just one comment more in addition. It's not a good thing for us to compete with the private world, but there are some things that fall into our hands in some way. And I agree, we should do our best to monetize that without causing any other unintended effects. I call this project the same thing, just like our landfill.
Thank you.
I've got some knowledge on this composting thing myself. I used to buy it by 50 or 100 yards at a time from the Portland Sewer Plant. Their process down there at the Portland Sewer Plant out in Columbia Boulevard is they take the human waste and they mix it with sawdust and run it through a huge kiln, just about like our lime kilns down at the mill. And it's heated up and basically it's sterilized, other than the fact it's rich in nitrogen. And that's the only way you can really, in all reality, deal with human waste. And I'm familiar with that. We don't have enough human waste here in Cowlitz County to make it even worthwhile to even think about it. The Portland Sewer Plant used to be able to sell it to people like myself, who was a landscaper. I could have 50 or 100 yards brought in over here when I lived on Fisher's Lane and dumped, and it's plumb safe. I put in lawns. I could grow the greenest grass in the world right on blacktop if I wanted to with that stuff. The other issue with the human, or with the waste that this lady's talking about, is trying to keep all this grass, who everybody in Longview, Kelso and Cowlitz County, if they got a garbage can, that's where they put their cut grass, their clipped leaves, et cetera. And going to the landfill, and our landfill is gonna fill up like a son of a gun anyway, and they're trying to keep that out of the landfill. Now, Clark County, and I don't know about Lewis County, but Clark County's got that plan already, and everybody's got to pay. They've got to pay once a month for two times pickup. You know, I know that Ridgefield for a fact has got it, and like I say, Clark County. You can't put anything in your garbage can. You can't even put broken glass in your garbage can. There's one for glass, there's one for tin cans, there's one for paper, and there's one for yard waste, period. But you pay. You do pay.
Okay.
I do want to be sure on one thing. the leaves and clippings and all that are actually not a problem to our landfill. We could fill it up tomorrow up to some height, and in no time at all, it'll be down to probably 20% of that height. And the rest of it's gonna go out as the gas. And so that's good stuff to have. What's not good stuff to have is broken bricks and drywall and things like that that just don't compress, don't decompose.
That's partly true, Aaron, but you know, I travel around still, even though I'm not in the landscape business anymore. And sometimes I'll go up and down these alleys and there's a couple, 2 or 3 of my friends that live in them. And I see not only grass, but I mean laurel hedge brush, tree clippings, and that all goes in your landfill.
That's good for us.
Well, I beg to differ. I mean, you know, how many cells you got? You know, I know this, the cells we got up there now probably last as long as you and I'll be around here. And who knows, you and I might end up in the same cells. God only knows. But, you know, what I'm saying is that there's no definition for it, you know? And if you want to compost, you know, you can't. And I can give you an example, like what you said about grass. You know, I've got a lawn genie and I can fill that lawn genie up with about 7 or 8 bushels of green grass on a hot day and dump it out in one little pile. And 2 hours later, it goes from this size down to this size. That's true, but it's still cubic yards is cubic yards. I mean, along with limbs, and they don't decompose that.
Well, there are a lot of people who run landfills that would probably have an argument with that, but we're good to go.
Okay. No other comments? We'll close the public comment portion of that hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I would move based on public testimony, no opposition, that we approve the ordinance for County Code Chapter 2.35, the compost procurement policy as proposed by staff.
Okay, it's been moved. Any further questions? I see no hands. We call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Susan. And we can move into, are you part of that or is that
That is
Patrick? Okay,
Patrick.
thank you.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Patrick Harbison, Public Works. Before you is an ordinance to amend chapter 1514-080 of the Cowlitz County Code that updates the unauthorized connections and use of water. Basically, what it does is it pulls out the specific dollar amount out of the code and just goes by the water rates that the BOCC adopts once a year, so that we don't have to go through a public hearing whenever we change this number. So that's basically the gist of it.
Basically, just cleans it up.
Although every year when we approve rate increases, we do have it's a public meeting, so there's going to be testimony whenever the rates change.
Correct. That it is a full public hearing for every rate change.
But it eliminates this kind of a formality.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't have to dive into the ordinance every year.
Yeah.
Any comments?
This is completely the best thing to do is to not have information spread all over the place and have one clean document that says, go here for this data. So that's good. I did want to ask you, how large a problem is this in the county?
We probably end up charging this fee about once every 2 to 3 months to somebody. We tend to have some regulars on this one that turn on their water without paying their bill. So once we've locked them off, they cut the lock and turn it back on.
Okay, so they don't get turned back on until they pay up?
They're not supposed to, correct?
Yeah, okay, and so do you lose that income? Or, so if they never turn on again, you've lost?
Correct. We could lose it if they never turn on again, but that rarely happens.
Got it. Okay. So it's only a nuisance that they're doing to you.
It becomes a legal concern if you have a connection that you don't know about. If something does get back into the water system and you don't know where it comes from, then it could be a health concern.
No other, we'll open up for public testimony. If there is any. Don't see any hands. Seems pretty straightforward, right? That'll be quick. We'll close public testimony.
So I did, and I should have asked the question before public hearing. So with housing shortages the way they are, we know that there's an increase in the interest in putting secondary residences, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, or sometimes you let somebody park their RV next door. And the question is that second household needs to have a connection to, if they're on the county water system, correct or not correct?
We don't require anybody to connect. So two neighbors, one could be on well, one could be on public water. Cities are a little different in that. But if you have another building on the same parcel, we prefer it to go through the same meter.
Okay.
So they could sub-meter it and deal with that themselves, but from our aspect, it'd be one bill to the parent parcel.
So that's really not the problem. The problem is people who don't pay and then
Yeah.
break into the system to keep using water. Okay, thanks.
Pleasure of the board on this.
Would you like a motion? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 11, to amend chapter 15.14.080 as has been discussed.
Further questions? Seeing none, I call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You got, I don't even know if I need to say anything, but I probably, I apologize. I get a little testy earlier. What makes it hard, it's you deal in an emotional arena and to get clear pictures on both sides, it still can make it difficult to get the right decision. And when you're not getting clear picture on both sides, I get a little testy with that. And I'm not really accusing people of coming in with the intention of lying, but I know emotions sometimes grab and paint a different picture than what we see. So I always try to just kind of sit back and hear. We always want to hear your testimony, but then you need to verify that what you're hearing is what you also see. And that's what we ran into a little bit this morning. I don't mean to get testy, but I still have some of my mother in me, so. So if there's any further comments, you're certainly welcome.
Just a quick comment supporting the discussions. We certainly have, almost everyone has cell phones and can take pictures and help describe and even put a tape measure of things up that bring clarity to some of these words and emotions into that subject. Biosolids. There is a lot of history on biosolids, as we all know, raised in Eastern Washington agricultural areas when this ecology in a lot of communities closed down all of their ponds that they used to put their sewage waste in, then they went to solid waste, et cetera. And I've been over in Eastern Washington. I've used biosolids myself on my own land. So anyway, rules and laws have changed. Hazardous materials, mercury and metals in it became a concern. But there is one whale of a lot of history of using good biosolids to neutral or to provide sustenance to our soils. So it's certainly, I'd rather see it on good land where it's safe, et cetera, than just filling our landfills.
Commissioner Dahl, I think you handled it well.
Oh,
A person's perspective is their perspective, and sometimes emotions, as you said, take over and we lose sight of reality. I think you've been very good about calming that down, but if you notice today, you have a lot of support out here that jumped in and closed down the knothead approach to things. You know, so just stick with, again, allowing us as citizens to voice our concerns and understand, again, it's going to be our perspective. And we want to try to get ultimately to facts about that and ultimately what's best for the people living in Cowlitz County and how we're spending that money and how we're representing them. I appreciate, again, you always come back and give some of the history and say, this is why this is, or this is how it came about, or this is why we are doing it from this approach, and allowing us as citizens to have some input as to what's going on with that, because it makes me feel like we're in this together. Not that we're making the decision, although you said we're helping you to make that decision. I think, again, you guys were elected to do what's best for all of us that's in this county. So you have experience and expertise that some of us may not have, and we depend upon that, but we also are not ignorant about what's going on. And we have experience and expertise that we sometimes can share because you're open to that. And I totally agree. It would be great to see Longview and Kelso adopt a similar approach in their public comments. And I think we'd get a lot more done. And I think people would be less frustrated with government and what's going on if you feel like you have a voice and representation. So I just, again, I've said this before, but I appreciate you gentlemen and your service and the time that you put into your responsibilities.
thank you.
I'm up here all the time. I'm sorry, just one more little question here. I'm looking at the updates.
I might hold you to that.
What was that? Okay, Dr. Emmanuel Lucinda, on the coroner's office. Now,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I missed a few meetings. And the last time I missed, we were talking about hiring, I believe, this gentleman to do emergency
yeah.
help. Was there any discussion about his absolutely outrageous fees? Because they were way high.
But there was quite a few questions. I'm trying to think back that was asked of the coroner to bring back. And it's really kind of on the coroner's timeframe right now, whenever she's ready to present us again and answer some of the things that were asked of her, then that'll come back. But we're just trying to show that we know it's out there. We're not delaying it. She's welcome anytime, but it's kind of in her court.
Okay, well, I wanted to comment because as I read it at that point in time, it was something like $1,500 just to come to do his job. That's extremely ludicrous. I mean, really, you don't pay somebody travel time of $1,500. And there were other fees I thought were not maybe that far out of line as much as that, but not acceptable. So I just was wondering if that part had been addressed, and thank you.
Well,
Apparently they have.
I think it was certainly talked about when she was initially in. It's been a little while.
We're still talking about the coroner?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some fundamental issues in there that are problematic by certainly county code. Neither of us can go out there and pay somebody to do something. We have to go through a process, and that process includes certifying that we have a have an agreement and so forth. And that's been completely set aside, at least in this case, by the coroner. The issue then becomes, do we pay it or not? Well, the auditor has to pay it by law. If a service has been provided, we owe the money. How we got the service provided is really the question.
Yes, but the standards, the amount of money that she has allotted for this particular service should be examined, I believe.
It'd make much easier on me if you could speak a little closer.
I believe that the amount of money that she pays for the service needs to be examined. I believe that she is out of line with the amount of money that she just has decided to give her temporary help. And that's my thoughts, is the fact that I read, and I don't have it in front of me now, I'm sorry, but the services and what, like, you know, actually driving the exam and whatever, it was listed. Some of it was okay, and some of it was absolutely ridiculous. You don't pay somebody $1,500 just to show up to do your job. Travel time doesn't cost that much. So I believe her amounts needed to be examined and questioned. If she has a reason for having that much money allowed for just travel time, then I'd like to have an explanation of it. But you know, we have to kind of watch what we pay people to do. We can't just set a high figure. I know they're possibly hard to get a hold of, a coroner, but we have many doctors right now that are out of a job for one reason or another. I think it wouldn't be difficult to replace that person if they demanded higher pay. So I think that she needs to be questioned and asked why she has put certain amounts on certain aspects of his job to do his job, because we need to know why.
Yeah, there's a complexity here because the electeds are an independent entity. And we've had this discussion here before. We have the budgetary control, and that control is in very small print, and it's in quotation marks, because we still, regardless of what we want to do about something, trying to enforce anything by budgetary means usually backfires.
Why?
I beg your pardon?
Why?
Because like we are obligated to have a morgue and to operate and to have a coroner and to operate. So
Correct.
if we decide we wanted to, let's take the extreme, cut the budget down to $0, you want the bodies to stack up in the street?
No, of course not. But you have to be realistic in how much you're going to pay. And I believe that you have the wherewithal, you have the
Yeah, no,
amount.
I got you, but we don't know how much that should be. We count on the electeds or department heads to figure that particular entity, and usually we discuss. I don't know about my my colleagues, but the coroner has never ever contacted me since her election. And she appeared here one time only, and that's the only time we've seen her.
Well, then maybe as a committee, maybe we should contact her and say, you know, we would really like to have you come and visit with us. We would like to have community input in or questions about what's happening. And I think that's due us. She just can't be a little queen off to herself and do what she wants to do.
I fully agree with you.
Yeah, we can always request. They don't always have to comply.
Really? Honestly?
She's an elected person. She doesn't have to.
Now, I find that strange. I'm sorry, I
Did she-
do. Because, you know, again, you're holding the purse strings. And so that should mean something to her. You know, I just don't understand that. I'm sorry. I mean,
Flo, have you contacted her?
no, but you know what? That's a good idea.
Because she is an elected official. I mean, all elected officials need to be responsive to public inquiries and requests, so.
Okay, Dennis, you know what? You've given me a great idea and I will do that. And I will have her here. And I thank you. I'm sorry. I just don't like, I've always been raised frugally and I don't appreciate spending money unwisely. And it'll give me something to do. After all, I'm just knitting. I'm a little grandma, just knitting away. It'll give me something to do. Thank you.
Well, let me say, we would deeply appreciate that help.
Sorry, I chuckle. I know Flo enough. I'm not buying that. Anything else? I see no hands. I see no comments. As always, thank you for participating in your government and we will adjourn. Jim, I'll head over with you, okay?
One last thing I forgot. We've been operating today under new stuff. If there are comments at all, particularly from the Zoom people online, I think this is a good time for you to raise a hand and say, do you like it? You don't like it? What is missing or anything like that? I purposely turned my camera on. And that's despite the fact that the ugly people shouldn't do that. But I did anyhow, just so you could have a contrast in a picture. But we broadcast this and we make all this available to you. And if there's an issue, we definitely should hear about it.
Okay,
I don't see any hands coming up.
thank you. We'll adjourn.